Hello and welcome to today's video. Today we're here for another episode of the Racing Debrief. We got to talk about Texas and we got to talk about F1 and the Japanese Grand Prix. So let's go in order of watching the events this time. It was a little bit strange, I guess, this week, of course, with F1 being in Japan. The race is at 1 a.m., so I was actually watching it at 1 a.m. because, I don't typically go to bed until like 3 or 4 just because I'm typically up working on videos. So I'm already kind of in that sleep pattern, I guess, of being up that late. So it's kind of just like, I'm going to watch this before I go to bed. So that was interesting. But earlier on Saturday was the Xfinity Series race. And start with that. So, that was pretty much just dominated by Justin Allgaier the whole way. But you had a lot of the different issues out there with the way the track was. I think Texas really showed its issues, especially in that race. Just with the fact that half the track is basically undrivable in the corners. So, that was very unfortunate. There was a lot of crashes due to that. You can go through each one, but coming towards the end, Justin Allgaier worked his way back. He had a little issue. He got up on one of the restarts, almost hit the wall, drove his way back to the front. A lot of things worked out for him, but in the end, he didn't win the race. Parker Kligerman got next to him and really kind of affected both of them. John Hunter Nemechek got to the front, won the race, got his 7th win of the year, so very dominant for John Hunter Nemechek, and the second year in a row that we've seen a Joe Gibbs driver in the Xfinity Series get 7 wins. Last year, Ty Gibbs did that. So, I wouldn't be surprised if John Hunter Nemechek gets himself 2 more, honestly. I think it's possible. But, yeah, you got that. What's going on? That's really my thoughts on that. I really want to dive into the F1 race most of all, so we'll jump into that. So, Japanese Grand Prix. I ended up watching qualifying. I think I was might have been doing videos at the time, and I was like, oh, I should watch it. And then it was on my phone. I'm like, oh, well, there's the results from it. I kind of accidentally seen it. But Max put in a crazy lap. His gap was it 0.8 of a second over Checo, I believe. So it was probably, I think it was 4 or 5 tenths over Piastri. He put in a crazy lap. But it's kind of showing Max really wanted to come back, and I feel like he wanted to prove people wrong about some of the things that were said about the technical directive that people thought really hurt Red Bull. But just happened to be Singapore as a track that did not suit those cars. But when it came to the race, Max had a great launch. But so did the McLarens. They even got better launches. Max put a little block on Piastri, and that let Lando get close to the outside, but he couldn't really do anything to get around, just the way the track was designed. It's kind of hard to go on the outside in that section. Good run into 1 into 2. It's very hard to make a pass on the outside. So Lando got close, but Max pretty much pulled away from there and dominated the whole race. I think he only probably missed 1 or 2 laps in there when he was pitting that he didn't lead. But outside of that, Max dominated the whole race. But the real talking point from this race, Max back on form, 13th win, second most ever in a season. Of course, the most in a season was set by him last year, 15. You could see Max maybe break that record again. You got 6 races left. If he can win 3 of the next 6, he'll set the record again for wins in a season. It seems doable. You got Qatar. He hasn't won Qatar, but there's only been 1 race there. You got U.S. Grand Prix. He's been really good at that track recently. Brazil, he won a few years ago. Hasn't really gone well for him recently, but Brazil's one that he's won again a few years ago. Was it 2019? And then Abu Dhabi. That's one that he's won the last 3 years at 20, 21, and 22. So he's dominated that track in the last 2 seasons. What other tracks do you have? Las Vegas is new. That's wild card. Who knows? Mexico, he's done pretty well in Mexico. So, honestly, Max would win the next 6. But outside of that, Red Bull winning constructors. Checo put in an absolutely awful performance. Got involved in contact early in the race. But, yeah, that broke his front wing. Then he got a safety car violation. A safety car from all the incidents at the beginning of the race. That put him in a spot of getting a penalty. And then he just spun out Kevin Magnussen. All that in 15 laps, had to retire the car. Team got him back out there. Kind of like some loophole in the rule that Red Bull found, which is brilliant. Got Checo out there to serve the 5-second penalty from hitting Kevin Magnussen. And then came back in and retired the car. So Checo putting in another awful performance, which has kind of become standard for what Checo does. I mean, I want to see both Red Bull drivers do well. Don't get me wrong. I'm a fan of the team. But, damn, I want to see that second driver do well. And Checo had a good, 2021. I was like, okay, this dude's got it. And then the second that the Red Bull became the most dominant car, the expectations for him were, you need to be second. You need to be third. Fill that role like Bottas did to Lewis at Mercedes. Fill that same spot, and he hasn't. He performed terrible. You rarely see in a race that Lewis dominated and Bottas was 9th. I mean, it happened a few times, but it wasn't as frequent as it is now. So the gap is a problem. Honestly, put Liam Lawson in that car. I'm cool with it. Speaking of, though, the Mercedes, as we were just discussing, we're looking at them and Lewis Hamilton, George Russell. They got close in the track a few times. I thought they were going to make some contact. But, we've seen a close call, but there was no contact between them. But they didn't seem too happy with each other after the race from what I've seen on Twitter. So, yeah. Interesting there. So, let's jump now into the NASCAR race and discuss... Oh, first of all, Red Bull winning constructors. Absolutely brilliant. So, I'll hide about that. I almost forgot that a little bit. We were just talking about the race and moving on. Red Bull winning constructors, 6th Constructors Championship. Super, super cool to see. Looking forward to... Max locking down the Drivers' Championship. Should do it in Qatar and could do it in the sprint. This man cannot win a championship in just a normal fashion. Yet 2021 with the controversy of that. 2022 in Japan, nobody knew how many points they were just getting, and he didn't know he won until he was told in the cool-down room and on the podium. And then now he's going to go in and have a good chance to win a championship in the sprint race. So, yeah, that's interesting. But on to the NASCAR race and Texas. So, Texas, of course, not a track anybody's looking forward to. We already seen the drama the day before in the Xfinity Series race, and it was kind of just more of Texas being boring. It had moments where you had some drama on the track. I mean, Kyle Busch crashing, that hurt his playoffs. But for the most part, on-track action outside of, some incidents, nothing really took place. You had in the pits, Ty Gibbs and Denny Hamlin. I feel in that scenario, you can't really pin it on either driver. People want to say, a lot of people blame Ty Gibbs. He took the blame for it. A lot of people, some people blame Denny Hamlin. I didn't blame either one. I think it's one of those things where Ty Gibbs came out of his pit and he didn't really need to move over all the way. Had he moved more towards the grass, it would have gave Hamlin more of a space to launch out. But Hamlin also had to make a sharper exit due to the car that was in front of him at an angle. So he had to go a lot more straight out and turn. And I think that affected it. I think that both of them couldn't really do anything in that scenario. I'm just surprised Ty Gibbs' car broke as much as it did. I mean, that little it didn't look like contact that was like race ending. Thought, oh, they'll put a little bit of tape on it and we'll be back. But yeah, disappointing, especially for that car. The black Interstate Batteries car was so awesome. It was like the most hyped up paint scheme all week. Seeing I was just like, oh my god, I had to make it in Gran Turismo right away. So I don't know if we have any clips of that racing out yet, but we should soon. I mean, that is an awesome design, and can't wait for the diecast of those because that car looks brilliant. More of the race though. I mean, you pretty much had Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Kyle Larson dominate again. There wasn't that much passing, that much action on the track. You had some of the back of the field cars crashing. Some tires came off, but for the most part, I mean, it was pretty much a standard boring Texas race. Again, incidents spiced it up a little bit, but passing on the track was pretty much non-existent. As for at the end, one of the last restarts, Kyle Larson underneath Bubba Wallace spins out. Air came off the car again. Not something you really see with the next gen car as much, but very disappointed in that. I was just like, damn. I mean, at this point, Kyle Larson's the guy. I mean, I've predicted Kyle Larson to win the championship at the beginning of the year. Placed a bet on him right away at the start. So that's who I want to see win the championship. Kevin Harvick got eliminated. Ty Gibbs didn't make the playoffs. So, I mean, Kyle Larson is the only driver really that I root for me. I mean, when it came to who do I want to root for next season, it was between Kyle Larson and Ty Gibbs. That was it. So, of course, Kyle Larson is going to be a driver I'm going to root for in scenarios like that. And if it's not Kevin Harvick or Ty Gibbs winning, I want to see Kyle Larson win. So when he crashed, I was very disappointed. Of course, going to Talladega next week, not a track that Kyle Larson's good at. Super speedways aren't his strong suit. So there's that. But at the end, Bubba Wallace taking the lead, doing a restart. Another incident, kind of a bigger crash in the back. Ryan Blaney gets involved. Really only playoff driver with that. Oh, Tyler Reddick as well. They both have a little bit of an issue there. And then, you look, another restart. Bubba Wallace, didn't have as good of a start. And that put him in a spot that William Byron got by him, and kind of ridiculous, the whole crowd cheering for William Byron to take the lead. But I guess that's what happens with the Bubba hate. I don't get it. It's wild. But, yeah, disappointed to not see Bubba Wallace get the win, when Kyle Larson's out of that spot. But, yeah, William Byron advances. So, see what happens. Talladega, Charlotte Roval, both are going to be insane races. 2 wild weeks here. Anybody can advance, anybody can get eliminated. It's going to be interesting. So next week, we have Truck Series and Cup Series racing, which we'll discuss. So we'll see you guys in the next one.